Oh, everyone. So today's session we're doing revision modules 1 to 4, switching concepts, VLANs, inter-VLAN. Then there is, I think the first one was basic switch configuration. Uh, Straight into it. Question number 1. Tasks, which task can be accomplished using the command history feature? Command history feature is a very simple feature, I think, which allows you to see history of the commands dzinenge dzaitwa in a given session. So the easiest way is ukaenda uchiconfigure ukapressa up arrow inokudzosa kumashure. I usually use that as shortcut yekuti, for example, kana uchiconfigure ma-interfaces, let's say you have multiple interfaces. So paunoenda unopinda muglobal of interface, opinda muinterface racho, then oisa IP address, oisa description, oisa maybe IPv6, oisa link local, also enable a link. That's for around 5 6 commands. Kana ndakuenda unopinda mune rimwe interface, instead of going back to the global ndoisa interface or fast or gig ethernet again, press up arrow and I edit out with the correct interface. Press up arrow again, I edit out the IP address kakawanda, maybe the host portion ndinenge yangosiyana or the mask. That's how I usually use this history feature. So it's a very useful feature which allows you to go back to see the commands and app. Then in a buffer, basically, which determines how much the amount of commands that you can save. I think the default is 10 lines, I think. So, which tasks can be accomplished by using the command history feature? B say whether it's a default chicos tipe maanza tinzo anza ishia.
I think D haisemi actually.
Inenda kubvisira B. I'm not so sure about the others. Pick two. So beside one isingaiti apa i5 kwasara two. Beside two mamwe asingaiti. I'm trying to find edit. Or something I used to write with you. What was it? It's been long, too long to organize comment. Yeah. Okay. Right, let's go. So this one out. Number 1, view a list of commands entered in a previous session. This one is out as well because we cannot view commands entered in a previous session, but a current session. Set up command history buffer size. Yes, we can do this. Change it from default. Recall previously entered commands. Yes, we can do this. Save commands lines in a log file for future reference. We cannot save more commands basically. So I think command history, we can summarize it as a way yekuti uone kuti macommands awamboisa previously akaita sei basically. Then with respect to buffer size, if you get to buffer size 10 lines, you can increase it. I'm not sure to how many, but you can increase it so that you can have more lines that you can recall basically. Number 2, what is the first action of boot sequence when a switch is powered on? Right. When a switch is powered on, boot sequence yedu ine my steps. Tipe itinzo. Regarding summarize here before we go much further. I think that was chapter 1. So in my steps, step number 1 is post. What happens per post?
Post test the CPU, the DRAM, and flash memory.
Test the hardware functionality, initialization. Then after that, we have the bootloader. And then our settings. Five. Oh, yes. Right. I've given you, I think, the summary of what happens when you boot up a device, a Cisco device. Point number 1, post. Power on self-testing. Number 2, something happens with the bootloader. What happens? Maziwa post yet. Low-level CPU utilization. We initialize flash memory. We locate the operating system. Who else is in here? The silence is deafening. I don't want to remember. Okay, on our chat. No, no, our chat. Unmute. Mawenga tichiko pama levels are 4. For me, these are the 4 levels that no Shandisa. Power on self-test. Then we have the bootloader, where we have the ROM communicating RAM to try to find the config register. Config register and rono check operating system, rono load operating system. Then we load the file. Then Canada load the file operating system. We're ready, it's ready to run. So for bootload ababa, you open it, the ROM monitoring. Then after that, initializing flash memory. Apa ndio patinotsvaga our iOS, ndio panatangira kutsvaga iOS yedu using my config registers, config reg commands. Then after that, after we've located our iOS, we run it. Then basically that's it. We are very easy to understand. My steps are, and I think you could get assistance from like pano switcher on, even per packet tracer, pano switcher on your device. Panenge pachirana numbers nema-characters anenge achimhanya. Learn how to understand kuti zvii zviri kuitika using these 5 steps that are. And I think in the previous videos, the power module number 1, there was a much clearer explanation here, these 5 steps. Right, let's see if we can answer my questions with this. So in summary, for exam's sake, we have post, we have bootloader, we have CPU utilization, then in flash memory initialization, then location of iOS. 5 steps. Apodactus eczema. What is the first action in the boot sequence when the switch is powered on? First action, yedu gogo. Okay, chat route D, load a power on self-test. Yeah, voila, post. So this one is very easy. So this is number 1. Which one is 2? Bootloader. Which one is number 2? This one. This one, bootloader, is number 2. Then this one is number 3. This one is number 4. In that order. Right. Let's go to apa name we're missing, Papa. Initialization of flash memory, I think the simple. So step number 4, Papa, this is 5. Right. What must the administrator have in order to reset a lost password? Yeah, that's another skill you probably need if you if you've waisa password yako ma password epa privilege exec and you forgot that password. I think epa use exec console doing very dangerous because you cannot go anywhere without that one. What do you do? Basically, okay, the answer is there. D, right. I think D, that's the answer, yes. Uh, so I was going to explain the process so that you get an idea why you need physical access to the router. The reason why you need physical access to the router is so that you can get access to the router via the console, boot up the switch, then interrupt the boot up process. Uh, but unosvika step number 2-ish ndopatinopinda mu-ROM monitoring. You interrupt ipapo, then it allows you to go to my config registers. My config registers, basically they are used to tell the device with how is it going to switch up. It just switch up from which memory, basically. So when you go to the config registers, then you allow it to switch per stage inenge isina password, basically. And that's how you bypass password iyoyo, oenda unoireseta, unoiclear, and everything gets sorted. So without getting physical access to the router, you cannot perform that breakup process, you could break the boot up process. I hope it was well explained by chapter 1. Number 4, when configuring a switch for SSH access, what are the commands associated with the login locale is required to be entered on the switch when configuring a switch with SSH access? At SSH access, login locale. Login locale command is used for authentication. Login locale is used for authentication. So when you talk authentication, it's identifying whoever is using. Answer is here. Answer we have from Sharon is D. No, no. Login block for second attempts. Right. This one within seconds. This one is used to ndo yekuti attempt kakawanda then unombovharirwa panze for some time for specific seconds specified. That's not associated with login locale at all. Login locale. Every time you hear login locale, think on what authentication virus? Authentication. Think authentication. Login locale is used for user authentication, so sort of validating user authentication to a given line, either the VTY lines or the console lines. When you talk of authentication, authentication is used to identify kuti ndiani ari kuwana access, identifying yourself. So the only answer in identification happened is C, username, secret. That's the other command associated with the SSH. So, but no creator SSH access, which is, I think if you follow my steps out from A, could create my domain names, could create my keys, crypto key, what, then pani command username. Command yoyo, do create authentication, which is then validated kuma lines, kuma virtual lines. Ukanda ma virtual lines also to login local. Those no validate the username yaunenge waisa pamusoro apo basically. So every time you see login local, think of user authentication. That is basically what you are doing. Right, to end up 5, which commands displays which command displays information about the AutoMDX setting for a specific interface? AutoMDX settings. Okay. Yeah, this one I just know it from experience. Show controllers. No command will not display anything to do with AutoMDX. Show interfaces. I know this one doesn't. I know this one doesn't. Show processes. I'm not so sure about this one. I just know. Show controllers. That's the command which is used. Show processes. It seems I've never used show processes, but right. Number 6, if one end of an Ethernet connection is configured full duplex in the other half duplex, where would collisions be observed? Well, collisions are observed on the half duplex side, on the half duplex end of the communication. I think this is logical. If you have full duplex on one end, half duplex on the other end, then my collisions are on the half duplex side because full duplex is able to communicate simultaneously, sending and receiving simultaneously. Therefore, we cannot have collisions on the full duplex side. However, on the other side, half duplex problems. 7, which command is used to set the boot environment variable that defines where to find the iOS image file on the switch?
Boot system.
Boot system. Are you sure? Yes. Config range. I think config range is not about the
Remember configuration files.
Hmm. Config range commands. But these ones work hand in hand. These config range commands are used to set up the config register. Then the bootloader, I think tambutara nezvaro futi. The bootloader allows us to get access to our operating system in the flash memory. It can be a bit confusing, but very easy. I remember ndichiita zvibata zvinoita kunge technical terms very difficult today, but it's not that much. The best way probably is to start steps are easy ana post iwayo kuti kana ndichiswitcha on device rangu masteps anofamba nawo ndeapi. Then you start including technical terms aya because ndo anoshandiswa. For example, by step number 2, bootloader inoshandiswa, etc., etc. What does the switch use to locate and load the iOS image? It uses this. Panapa nangoshandisa elimination. It cannot post hapana iOS image up. iOS image file, no. Startup config, no. Unonga watopinda switch. NVRAM, no. Umo NVRAM mune startup config file hamuna iOS image. So by eliminating my answers, you can get to an answer as well. Boot environment variable. Right. Number 9, which protocol adds security to remote connections? So which protocol adds security to remote connections? You easy to answer. This one is very simple. FTP, file transfer, SSH, HTTP, web. I don't know about this one. POP, emails, SSH, security for remote connections. Find the time. And then do some question mark also research what that is. It might be helpful. Could also get the answer because always out of everything else. What is the characteristics of an IPv4 loopback interface? A loopback interface, what is it used for? Let's start there. A loopback address, self-test. What about the loopback interface? What's the difference between a loopback address and a loopback interface? Yeah, it's very simple. It's actually simple. What's a loopback address? What's the relationship between a loopback address and the loopback interface? So basically, what is it used for? I think you know what it is used for. What is a loopback address used for? It is the
Self-test.
yeah, self-test. Self-test. Answer A, B, a logical interface internal router. Right, exactly. The loopback interface. I think the relationship is basically if you create a loopback interface, then you assign a loopback address to that interface. You can assign a loopback address to that interface, and it is used for self-test. It is also used uh, identification MMR routers in routing environments. It is always up. It never goes down. It's an interface. A loopback interface. It's an interface which always is up. It never goes down. So you can use that to identify a device routing environments. Uh, let's see, my answers are only one loopback. No, this one you can have multiple loopback interfaces on one router. It is not assigned to a physical port. Yeah, this is definitely the answer. The no shutdown command is required to place this interface in an upstate. This is not required to place it in the upstate. It is always in an upstate. The moment you configure the interface, it goes up. Right. What is the minimum Ethernet frame size? 64. Size EMA frames 64 to 1580. Keep these numbers in mind. Then after which step of the switch boot up sequence is the bootloader executed? A bootloader execution is step number 2. Step number 2 is soon after post. After which step? Yeah, it's after post. So post, then bootload, then CPU utilization, then flash system initialization, then iOS localization. So tikadzoka prepare for exam. Step number 1, post. Step number 2, bootloader. Step number 3, CPU utilization. Step number 4, this one, flash. Step number 5, this one. In that order. Which impact does adding a layer 2 switch have on a network? An increase in the number of dropped frames. Adding a switch. Why will there be an increase in dropped frames after adding a switch? I think it actually helps because a switch is very intelligent. You'd expect to,
Right.
if you add a switch,
But the answer, I think, is B.
increase the size of the broadcast domain. Maybe. The tournament as actually is any increase in the number of network collisions, an increase in the size. EIT. A switch breaks collision domains, so it makes them smaller basically. It breaks collision domains. So this one in increase doesn't make sense. An increase in the number of network collisions. This one, no. I think C and A is right off banana. B makes sense. So B is the answer for this one. Right. Which characteristics describes cut-through switching? Nah, these ones are easy. Debate from the first up. I think this one works. Error-free. Error-free. This one. Error-free fragments are forwarded. So switching occurs with low latency. Cut-through. Error-free. Cut-through and error-free. Answer neighbor.
I could be wrong.
Hey,
Frames are forwarded without error checking. B.
hey, yeah. Yeah, one my error. Yeah. That's a serious one. What is the significance difference between a hub and a layer 2 switch? A layer 2 switch is intelligent. Inenza kuenda traffic. A hub no broadcaster. A hub, right? Okay, in terms of collision domains, debating 15 extend. A hub extends a collision domain in the switch device. This is true. Switch divides collision domains. A hub extends. This is true. So I think this one can be an answer. A hub divides. No, a hub does not divide collision domains. Each port of a hub, no. It's actually each port of a switch is a collision domain. You should know this. Like when you say a switch breaks collision domains, each port is a collision domain, is a collision domain, is a collision domain, is a collision domain. The same way, if we have a router, this is a broadcast domain, this is a broadcast domain. Understand those two concepts, nema broadcast domain, nema collision domain. So, can a collision domain, we add a switch separates device that collision domain. Every port per switch ring a collision domain on its own. And by definition, a collision domain is basically a network segment where if multiple devices try to send information at the same time, then a collision. A perfect example, we have bus topology. Bus topology, if multiple devices try to send at the same time, a collision. Right. Then a broadcast domain is a network segment where if one device broadcasts, then every device in that network gets the message basically. So broadcast domain is usually broken near router. Right. So panapa a hub forwards frames, a switch forwards only packets. A switch are forward my packets, not forward my frames. So I think a good answer. Good answer. Which statement is correct about Ethernet switch frame forwarding decisions? Forwarding decisions, frame forwarding decisions are based on MAC address and port mappings in the CAM table. This can be an answer. This can be an answer. Decisions are based on MAC address, yes. After learning process, forwarding follows depending on the addressing MAC addressing table. I think that one can work. B, cut-through frame forwarding ensures that invalid frames are always dropped. False. First, cut-through emergency first. Store and forward. Store and forward, I think, is the one which ensures invalid frames are dropped because it checks everything. Only frames with broadcast destination address are forwarded out or active ports. This one I'm not so sure. D. Unicast frames are always forwarded regardless of the destination MAC address. C and D, I'm not so sure about it really. A question, which statement is correct about? Okay. only frames with broadcast destination address are forwarded out all active ports. This one is wrong. They are not forwarded to all active ports. They are forwarded where? Broadcast no forward wakupi. Quick response. It's not forwarded to all active ports. It is forwarded to all active ports except the incoming port. Mwana my answer are very tricky. You get very close to be a very correct answer here. But I expect the incoming port I have up. That's the answer. Wrong. Then this one, unicast frames are always forwarded regardless of the destination MAC address. Destination MAC address, can I see more MAC addressing table? Then that thing will probably not be forwarded. Can I see more within the network segment? Then where we will forward this packet. So unicast frames are not always forwarded. Then I think answer panapa is A. No mega sense. How do switch buffers affect network performance? A switch buffer is a memory yekuti port rikaremerwa traffic inomboenda kunoiswa kubuffer, then port kana rakukwanisa kuprocessa traffic yobva kubuffer youya kuport. Answer inoenderana nezvandataura ndeipo. Switch buffer, they provide error checking. Buffer rina error checking. They store frames received, preventing premature frame discarding when the network congestion occurs. That is exactly what I said. They provide extra memory for a particular port if auto negotiation. They do provide extra memory, but it's not for auto negotiation. They hold data temporarily when a collision occurs until normal data transmission resumes. Question mark. They hold data temporarily when a collision occurs. Data is not hold when a collision occurs. Yeah. My answer.
Plus apa say apa the fact kuti panzi data ka. Then apo panzi frames anditi ka. Already zvatosiyana. Kachitaura nyaya yespeed taura nyaya yemaframes.
Vanhu vari kudzidziswa. Yeah. Yeah, I like your response. You like that,
Yeah.
the moment I read the data thing elsewhere. No, I get it. I get it. Yeah, okay. I think answer probably is definitely A. It makes a lot of sense. This is me trying to analyze my answers just to see what I say. But I like how you responded to this. Right, 18. Which switch characteristics helps keep traffic local and alleviates network congestion? Port density, definitely. It helps keep traffic local. Right. When you talk of port density is more to do with having my number of ports akawanda on your device. So I'll give you an example, 126. If I have a network yandinoda so a 4-port switch here. 4-port switch here. So panapa panoti 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. My devices edumangani 1, 2, 3, 6 my devices. 4-port switch. Then dotora 8-port switch. These are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can see the difference. Which switch characteristics help keeps traffic local? Panap, traffic is not local to any switch because the switch here will share traffic here. There's a link will share traffic. Panap, traffic here say for 6 devices is local. Ndo parobva answer yenyu. Kana tichitaura kuti high port density, it just means maport akawanda pa switch. So if 8-port compared to 4-port, this one is more port density. Ndokunobva nyaya yeport density. Right. I can see my time is up now. I think let's have one more session. If we speed up, we'll also get at least halfway. Copy.